access to the poem Amanda Gorman recited at Biden's inauguration has been limited at an elementary school in Miami-Dade County after just one parent complained about the poem's contents. Now, according to documents obtained by the Florida Freedom to Read Project, Miami-Dade County Public Schools moved Gorman's The Hill We Climb book to the middle school section of the library after a parent filed a formal objection. Now, the district says in a statement, quote, "It was determined at the school that The Hill We Climb is better suited for middle school students, and it was shelved in the middle school section of the media center. The book remains available in the media center," the statement reads.
Now the parent responsible for making the complaint has been identified by the Miami Herald as Daly Salinas. Back in March, Salinas, the parent of 2 elementary school students, made formal challenges to the following works: The ABCs of Black History, Cuban Kids, Countries in the News, Cuba, Love to Langston Hughes, the poet, and Gordon's The Hills We Climb. Now the group Miami Against Fascism says they've combed through Salinas' social media profiles and found evidence of far-right activism, including proof that she attended several rallies of the alt-right white supremacist Proud Boys group. Jamel Hill asked, quote, "Is this the one parent who successfully got Amanda Gorman's poem banned? Will the Miami-Dade School District reverse this decision now that it's surfaced that parent has ties to a white supremacist organization, or does the comfort of a white supremacist matter more?" So this was an interesting one that really roiled up on Twitter in 2 waves. First was, I think, some confusion as to how a poem that was given nationally at an inaugural address could be perceived as inappropriate or flagged from a content perspective as inappropriate to be in an elementary section. If it is in fact an elementary, a higher reading level and needed to be in a middle school section, I think that is more understandable. But then when the additional revelations about the other books that this parent has flagged came to light, in conjunction with the fact that her politics, her personal choice to associate with groups like the Proud Boys, started to cast a picture of a parent that was being motivated by something other than the appropriate reading levels of a given child. And also there were concerns that this one parent had such an ability to affect the kind of choices that were being made administratively at the school. And the question is, how much influence would she be able to have had if the social media stuff didn't come to light and the public brouhaha hadn't bubbled over in this way?
I mean, whether or not she attended a far-right rally, I don't think changes whether, as a parent, she has some right to decide for her kid what her kid is reading. I think that right only extends to her own kid, not to have the book taken down. I'm glad it wasn't actually taken down, but just kind of shelved somewhere else. Look, I'm not super familiar with any of these books in question, but they don't look objectionable to me in any way. I will note the parent actually misidentified the author of so on the forum, you write down, did you see this? You write down the title. Oh, you would love this if you saw this. So you write down the title of the book and then who it's by and then like your reason for getting rid of it. And the mother's writing was very illiterate, like tons of grammatical errors, but she misidentifies the author as Oprah Winfrey. So I think you could argue actually that this report, this complaint, is so wrongly filed that it shouldn't like count. Like if you don't know enough to say I object to this book by this person, and you get one of those 2 crucial pieces of information wrong, I'm not sure the library needs to do anything. Yeah. But look, I mean, we kind of disagree on this, I guess. But I don't object to any of these books. They should be in libraries. I don't generally want to take books out of libraries. I think if it's a public resource, a school resource, there is always going to be some kind of argument over what the curation should be, and I think parents should play a role in that because it's their kids and they have a right to have a say over their own kids' educational environment. I don't think they should have that right over everyone else's kids, and maybe the library should have a better checkout system, like this kid is allowed to check out these books, this kid is not. You need a permission slip to watch an R-rated movie or a PG-13 movie. I'm probably in Florida, you need a permission slip to watch any movie for any reason. And that's fine because it should be parents say, not school officials, broadly speaking, is my view. Even though I probably don't agree with. If I had kids in the school system, I'd probably be comfortable with them reading maybe a wider range of literature. I read some pretty advanced, weird science fiction when I was in the 7th and 8th grade that probably this parent would object to. So it's not my values, wouldn't be my family's values, but we can't force everyone to have the same agreement over what's the standard should be, because we'll just fight forever.
There have been fights about, for example, a lot of parents think that Harry Potter is demonic and they don't want their kids to read those books. Remember, that was a whole cycle. And I'm sure there were
now that's liberals who think that because it's anti-trans.
Well, no, liberals don't think that Harry Potter is demonic. They may do a boycott of the books because of their politics, the way that Republicans have been boycotting Bud Light and people have a right to do that. But I imagine there were a number of kids who availed themselves of their school libraries to read that and others, and you can take a position on that. Do you think that kids should be able to go out into the world and find books, perhaps at their school, that their parents would constrain them from having at home? Do we want there to be some outlet for kids that are perhaps in oppressive environments? You know, that's a very subjective view. Do you think that parents should be able to have dominion over their kid forever? Do you acknowledge that kids need to have resources? People have been telling stories about, there was a viral tweet about a woman who, in some kind of health education class, read a book about abuse and remembers a classmate of theirs realizing for the first time that what their father had been doing to them was wrong because they saw it described as such in literature that they got at school. I mean, these are things that happen, and part of why we have health classes and why we think that public education is so important, because there is some acknowledgement that most of us don't get everything that we need within the context of our own home. But what's important about the story, and I'm so glad you raised the form the mother filled out, because where she says, why do you object to this material, where the form asks that, she doesn't say, I think it's middle school content, not elementary school content. And I think the school district's choice to move it instead of removing it is being used to cover up the fact that the real objection to this book was not anything having to do with the reading level. The mother writes, is not educational and have indirectly hate messages. So again, you're getting this continuation of this narrative that books, poems, writing that is about somebody else's racial struggle, somebody else's personal struggle of persecution, whether or not it's a Jewish person fleeing the Holocaust, an Irish person fleeing the famine, basically narratives that are about why America is ostensibly great, that it has been a bastion for political prosecution, that we have overcome slavery and racism and segregation in our own country. Some of the most beautiful stories of America overcoming those bad things are being actively and affirmatively washed from our schools by these parents who seem to believe that talking about people overcoming hate is the same thing as promulgating hate.
If I had to guess, based on my understanding of this person's associations, it sounds like, and her name is Latina, and her objection to the Cuban books, and she said somewhere that she was afraid of socialist indoctrination. It sounds to me like she has a Latin American background and has a hostility toward socialist authoritarian government in her home country or her ancestors' country.
What does that have to do with Amanda Gorman's poem that she read at the inauguration?
Absolutely nothing.
For a very capitalist president.
But two of the books that she objected to had Cuba in the title. So that's probably, it's well, you framed it as like hating other people because of their identity. And what I assume what her thinking is, that's not to say it's correct, is that she objects to, she feels like, I don't see what the issue is with the Amanda Gorman poem, but is instructing these kids in a political tradition that is, according to her, brutally repressive. And
yeah, she writes further that there's a question, what do you believe is the function of this material? She says, cause confusion and indoctrinate students. You know, at a certain point, there are people who are going to think whatever you learn in school is indoctrination. My parents, because they did the job of parenting, told me that there were things that I was going to learn, things that that they don't agree with, that I could think for myself, and they encourage that behavior. I would like to think that unless you believe that you should be the school administrator and control everything that every student wants, you're going to have to acknowledge it. You're not going to agree with every single thing. Excuse me, I got a tickle in my throat. So yeah. Where does this ultimately end?
Yeah. I mean, well, it should not end with everybody feuding about exactly which 5,000 books are going to be in the school library, because we're never going to agree. Even two people of like very approximate political views are going to, some book is going to be over the line. Maybe not, again, we're going down the wrong direction. Many of the book ban fights have been about books that have sexual themes and that have very, very sexual drawings and images in them, and I understand why, if some, again, that's their choice. Some parents say they don't want that for their families. This is the appropriate age for my child, not this age. And rather than have that decision taken out of their hands and forced on everyone at the same time, I want to, wherever possible, give families more opportunities to decide for themselves in consultation with the school district. Obviously, you're right that if like there's abuse going on in a family, like a kid is not going to be, there's no right for a family to abuse their child. But in like the hierarchy of whose rights come first, to me, it's the individual, it's their family, and then it's, you know, the school is the state.
Just to be clear, I want to be really clear about what has actually been banned. The ABCs of Black history. Mm-hmm. Love to Langston, which is a kid's book about a great African-American poet, Langston Hughes.
And two books about Cuba.
Countries in the News, Cuba.
Yeah.
We have no sense of what the ideological bent of that book is. Countries in the News, Cuba. And Cuban Kids.
Yeah.
Cuban Kids. I wish we had the paperwork about that. It looks like it's a picture book. Cuban Kids looks like a picture book. It's described on Amazon as a timely and remarkable photo study of the children of Cuba. Documents and brings to life the Cuban culture, history, and spirit.
Well, unless Oprah Winfrey actually wrote it, I think this was a wrongly filed complaint and should have been ignored. How about that?
Sure, we can agree on that one. All right, more Rising for you right after this.